Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony. He's Ron. And together we're about to uncover the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream and corporate-owned media. Ron, we have a lot to talk about today. I feel like it's been a long time since we spoke, but it's only 7 days, and that's because there's always, every day, there's another crisis. The kind of drama that would bring down a government in any other country. But for some reason here, this authoritarian regime, which is very much underway, gone is that, the chance of us falling into a dictatorship. The dictatorship is very much now in full swing. Maybe we should start with the corruption that Trump has announced very brazenly and proudly, and that is that Trump's legal team is seeking $230 million in compensation from the Department of Justice for all of the investigations against him, because he feels that he was wronged and therefore, he deserves damages because it upset him. I mean, the New York Times broke this story. What's your take on it?
There is just so much corruption and scandal. Sometimes stories fall off the radar and issues fall off the radar.
Yeah.
And this is one of those that sort of fell off the radar. I mean, after Trump won the election and the cases were dismissed by Jack Smith and other prosecutors were forced to dismiss cases either because of immunity or Aileen Cannon dismissing cases or Trump winning the election. He filed the lawsuit. He sued DOJ for malicious prosecution, right? And I think that everybody sort of just assumed Trump is the most litigious person in the history of the planet. He's filed over 7,000 lawsuits in his lifetime. Everybody's assumed, this is just another dumb, frivolous, ridiculous Trump lawsuit, and people forgot about it. And then we find out from the New York Times that his new attorneys, since all of his old attorneys now work for the Department of Justice.
They're now running the Justice Department.
Yeah.
Right. You couldn't make this up.
His new attorneys have presented a proposal to his old attorneys who are now at DOJ to settle this lawsuit for $230 million, right? And so who are they negotiating with? Who has to sign off on this settlement agreement? His old lawyers. He's literally having like Pam Bondi and
Todd
Blanche
yeah.
negotiate whether the taxpayers of America are going to pay Trump $230 million for crimes that he got away with solely because he got elected president. And so Trump was asked about this. And, you would think he would kind of go, well, no, wait, what? I didn't know about that. I'll look into it. I'll just, oh, no. Trump is like, so he says, oh yeah, well, I'm entitled to this money. I mean, this is U.S. taxpayer dollars. And then he claims, as he always does, that it's going to be donated to charity. This is my favorite Trump family line. Like Junior uses it, Eric, they all use it. They always claim when they get some windfall profit from something that they don't deserve, that they're going to give it to charity. And then lo and behold, you find out it never goes to charity.
Well, as a family and as even the business that Trump was running, effectively still running, the Trump organization, aside from, charity fraud and business fraud, but they just never gave to charity. I mean, this is part of their grift, wasn't it? That they are not charitable people. They don't believe in charity. And we know that in the US, people set up foundations to avoid tax and various things. And these people were experts at it.
Look, I think that was one of the main reasons why Trump did not want his tax returns disclosed for so many years. There was several different reasons, but one of the biggest reasons was he didn't give any money to charity. Relative to his income, it was a tiny amount, and that is on his taxes. So that was one of the things he was trying to hide for so many years. But even if he was giving it to charity, what charities is he going to give it to? He's going to give it to all right-wing political donor, grifter type groups. He's not going to give it to charity, though. He's not going to give it to them. Trump doesn't give money to anybody. I mean, look at the White, the destruction of the White House, like we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
He claimed for weeks and weeks he was going to pay for that out of pocket.
That's right.
Now we find out, no, he's not. So no, I mean, this is just corruption at its core. That first of all, honestly, I would have no problem if what I really thought he should say, what anybody should say, is we're going to wait until after my presidency is over to pursue this case, because we still have statute of limitations hasn't run. So we're gonna refile this, or we're gonna postpone this until after my presidency, and then we'll take it to court. In other words, we're not gonna do the preposterous thing of negotiating with ourselves over whether we're gonna give me money out of the taxpayer dollars. We're going to let the next administration conduct this. Or no, how about this? We're not going to settle this case. I would have no problem even with that. Let this case go forward to trial. Let a jury and a judge decide this case, not Pam Bondi.
You're confusing him with somebody who isn't a criminal. And I think this is the problem with Donald Trump, isn't it? Or maybe the problem that we have with Donald Trump is we keep giving him the opportunity to go straight. We keep giving him the opportunity to present himself as a legitimate president. But the problem, Ron, is once a criminal, always a criminal. And so every business dealing, every transaction, every so-called peace deal, or whatever it is that the guy's negotiating, has a criminal element to it. Because that is the only way he knows how to do business. That's how Roy Cohn taught him. That's how his father taught him. That's how his mentors taught him. This is what we're dealing with.
You're absolutely right. I don't want to get off topic again, but, it makes me think of the European leaders with respect to Ukraine, because I really thought, again, even I, because now I'm talking about Europe, I'm not talking about Trump, but after this latest thing where he just he had Zelensky come in and he just had the 2-hour phone call with Putin, and then he just repeated all of Putin's talking points and demands to Zelensky, like verbatim. And Zelensky thought he was there to talk about Tomahawk missiles, but oh no, after Trump talked to Putin, there was no talk about us giving them missiles. It was all about Ukraine surrendering to all of Putin's demands. And I thought, okay, now Europe has to know what we've been saying for like a year now, which is it's over. The U.S. is not going to help Ukraine.
Nope.
You are on your own. You need to realize that and deal with it, which they've been totally in denial. How many times have they continued to fly to wherever Trump is at to beg him hat in hand to get in the game?
Well, because
thinking that they're going to convince him.
But that's unfortunately the problem with this positive bias, thinking that he will operate under the protocols of tradition. And, because they don't know criminals. These people, Keir Starmer doesn't hang out with a criminal fraternity. I appreciate he used to be the director of public prosecutions, but, he doesn't think of Donald Trump like that.
Yeah,
and even a lot of the political analysis that goes on in the UK and Europe, again, they talk about him as if he's like a traditional politician.
That's the problem.
And that is a huge problem.
And you know what's happening right now as we're sitting here talking?
Yeah.
Mark Rutte, the NATO head of NATO, is on a plane flying to DC to try and convince Trump to change his mind again. And I'm just like, you guys just don't, you still don't get it.
It's not even just that Trump doesn't want to help Ukraine. It's that he's on Putin's side.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of leap of faith that European leaders
they don't
recognize.
They think it's like he's just getting hoodwinked.
Yeah.
He's just, it's just whoever the last person he talks to is who he sides with. Yeah. That's what they're thinking. They don't fully comprehend, even still, that he is on Putin's side.
Yeah. I just want to play this clip of when a reporter in the Oval Office asks Trump about this $230 million claim that he has against the Justice Department. I'm not sure if it's on this clip because it's only a minute long, but you might notice it. It might be in the earlier bit, but I'm sure people have seen it. He seems completely out of it.
Yeah.
His face, his inability to understand the question. Initially, they asked about compensation, and he thought that they were talking about his financial compensation as president. He said, no, I give my salary away. But there was a moment, he's always putting on a face, putting on a poker face. But there was a moment where I saw the dementia and the mental illness kind of collide.
Yeah,
I'm sure you did too. Where
we see it all more often every day.
He was kind of staring into space like someone you might go visit in a residential home, which is obviously where he should be. Let's take a look.
Yes, very good.
To follow up on her question to you, because the New York Times is reporting that your legal team is seeking $230 million from your own Justice Department now in response to the investigations into you.
It could be.
Is that something you want your legal team to do?
I don't know what the numbers are. I don't even talk to them about it. All I know is that they would owe me a lot of money, but I'm not looking for money. I'd give it to charity or something. I would give it to charity, any money. But look, what they did, they rigged the election. And as you know, we had, in one case, 60 Minutes had to pay us a lot of money. George Slobodanopoulos had to pay us a lot of money. And they already paid. They paid me a lot of money because what they did was wrong. And, when somebody does what's wrong. Now, with the country, it's interesting because I'm the one that makes the decision, right? And, that decision would have to go across my desk. And it's awfully strange to make a decision where I'm paying myself. In other words, did you ever have one of those cases where you have to decide how much you're paying yourself in damages? But I was damaged very greatly, and any money that I would get, I would give to charity.
Yeah, he certainly is damaged. That clip didn't show the sundowning, which was the kind of previous part of that, the first part of the clip. And I encourage people to see. I actually made a video last night.
Well, he was asked about this a couple different times.
Yes,
so he might have been thinking about one or the other.
It was the first time he was asked. He literally and he wasn't even pretending to not know. He literally doesn't know. But the way that his brain seems to work, he is triggered into going into a kind of comedy routine. So the moment you kind of mention immigration, then he goes into insane asylums and all the stuff that triggers him. And this is very dangerous. And I think, there's been a couple of articles coming out of Europe where they're talking about, like, when is someone going to 25th Amendment this guy? It's never going to happen. And this is going to get...
it's ridiculous. That's never going to happen.
No, but people who don't understand the backstory...
25th Amendment, he's either, going to die in office or, he's going to try and not leave or he's going to leave voluntarily.
Well, his operators love that he's losing it because they can manipulate him out. Yeah.
No Republican is going to force him out.
No.
And that's what it would require. But, look at his answer right there. He says, oh, isn't it kind of interesting that I have to decide? It doesn't come across his desk. This is where he conflates DOJ with himself. He thinks he runs DOJ, and that's not how it's supposed to work.
Nope.
DOJ is supposed to be separate from the White House. He's supposed to appoint the attorney general, appoint the U.S. attorneys and the deputies, and that's it. Then he's out. He doesn't direct the day-to-day operations of DOJ. No president is supposed to do that. Any president who has attempted to do that, like Richard Nixon, was impeached. You can't do it. But you see what he says there. Oh, well, I would have to decide. Isn't it kind of interesting that I have to decide to pay myself?
Yeah.
Pay yourself with taxpayer money. Yeah. And if anybody believes that it's going to charity, then you're probably in the MAGA cult.
This separation of powers, though, I have tried to do some research on this, and from what I've discovered, it is just anecdotal that the president can't control the Department of Justice. Yes, that's the way it's always been, and yes, that's been upheld, but there isn't really anything written specifically that says that's the law. And so this is Trump's interpretation of how the presidency operates, that he appoints the attorney general, in this case his own lawyer, and then they work for him. And isn't that maybe a flaw in the Constitution, that ultimately it's open to interpretation?
Sure. Well, Congress created these agencies, and they created the laws and the rules that govern the agencies. And then the Constitution allows the president to appoint the people in charge of the agencies. But yes, it's not exactly clear if a president can say, I am ordering the attorney general to prosecute, because I mean, that happened, with Richard Nixon. And what happened is he just kept firing prosecutors, until he found Elliot Richardson, who agreed to do what he wanted to do. But I think
that's what Trump's been doing as well.
He fired 2 attorney generals before that who refused to do. And, he got rid of Jeff Sessions for similar reasons. He wasn't doing what he was supposed to do, forced him out. So, Barr, he quit on his own right before January 6th. But now, he doesn't have that problem anymore. He's got people that will do everything he tells them to do with no questions asked. So that's not really an issue. So now he's going to push it as far as he can go. He doesn't have an attorney general who's going to say, no, sir, you can't do that. I'm going to do what I want. You have an attorney general now who says, okay, sir, who do you want me to prosecute tomorrow?
Right. And the lawlessness presents itself in all of the language, the way that Pam Bondi speaks like a kid. It's so lawless in its presentation. And that's what's so frustrating. It's literally like the inmates have got the keys to the prison and are running riot. And I don't see any end to this. I am always optimistic about the future, and I was hugely buoyed by No Kings, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the problem when they have control of everything, and the reason why he wouldn't go to Congress for anything is because he thinks he is Congress,
right?
Because he has a majority, and so Congress hasn't even been in session. What have they done? Like 12 days or something? I mean,
12 days out of the last 90.
Yeah. This is the problem of having a criminal enterprise in the White House. Everything from the demolition of the building, which they never applied for planning for, right the way through to this type of stuff that we're talking about.
There you go. And you talk about like flaws in the Constitution, right? So, Congress pays for the White House, constructed the White House, and the National Park Service maintains the grounds, and DC does the permitting and all that. And that's how it's supposed to work. And any changes of the White House have always gone through all those procedures and checks and balances, and you go to Congress for the funding and all that. But then what do you have? We have a president who just ignores all of it, who just says, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm not complying with, I'm not going to go to I'm just going to start tearing apart the building. I mean, does the Constitution really say? No, it doesn't really say,
No, because it relies on people to be sane and
who
respectful.
Could stop it is Republicans in Congress. If they stepped up and said, no, we're not going along with this, he would be forced to back off because he can't get any of his agenda done without their help. And so, but they won't say anything, they're the only person who has objected to that is Tom Tillis, who's retiring.
Yeah.
No coincidence that the guy who's retiring from the Senate is the only Republican who will speak up about this.
Let's talk about the building for a second, because these images of the demolition are very emotional for anybody who is patriotic towards the White House and its history. Trump lied outright. He said a couple of months ago that, the Epstein ballroom, as it now has to be known, will be a separate building, and there won't be any demolition. It will sit next to it. And so, but obviously that was
will not touch the existing structure.
Will not touch the existing structure.
And he took out the trees.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay. I mean, those are trees. It's not the building. Now, then it was like, part of now it looks like the entire East Wing is going to be destroyed, which is, the First Lady's residence and stuff. So since she doesn't actually live there.
Well, do you know, Ron, I have a theory about this, which I was very keen to run by you. I was going to make a whole video on it, and then I was like, no, I want to save this for Ron, because I'm sure he'll have something to say.
Okay.
No, it's all good. We're going to be on the same team over this.
Okay.
I was thinking, because the East Wing is traditionally the residence of the First Lady and the First Lady's offices, and I think it's visitors' offices and that kind of stuff as well, right?
Right.
I think that this might have also something to do with Trump and Melania and their relationship. And psychologically, what he might be doing here is saying F you to Melania, because she does not like him. She certainly doesn't love him. She is a wife for hire. She effectively shows up for public events and is probably on the clock. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. No disrespect to her. But, I mean, would you want to be married to that guy? The point here that I'm making is that the desecration of the East Wing is basically an FU to the First Lady. And I when I saw him relishing this, and I'll show the clip in a second of him relishing the sound of construction or destruction, I thought, shit, that's what this is. This is how he gets back at Melania.
It's an interesting theory. I did think about that for a few seconds myself, and then I, like you, kind of moved on from it, because I was kind of thinking it through. So we know that Melania has always had a separate bedroom from Trump for like many years. We know from the Mar-a-Lago raid that she had her whole building on a completely different end of the Mar-a-Lago, as far away from him as she could get. And so we know that she doesn't live at the White House. So, but the offices of the First Lady are there. You wonder, like, when she stays in DC, has she had a bed set up there? That we don't really know. I suppose it's certainly possible. If she wanted to have a bed in the East Wing, that would be not hard to do. So maybe it's that if she did do that, he's trying to give her no other place to stay. You gotta be in my room, or you got no place to go. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. If there is no East Wing, and it certainly looks like maybe there isn't going to be an East Wing, where does the First Lady work? Where do those people go? Do they go into the executive office building across the road? What about the next First Lady, whoever that is? Hopefully, a Democrat. Like, is that person going to have to build a new East Wing now? I mean, this is all I can tell you. I'm gonna repeat myself on this because he has many other construction projects planned. I am looking for Democrats running for president, if we get there, to say, I'm going to tear all this shit down. I don't care that it's a waste of money. It's a waste of CEO money. I don't care if it's going to, look petty.
Yeah.
I want the White House restored. And if I hear a Democratic candidate get up there and say, no, you know what, I'll look into that, or give some BS answer, or duck and dodge the question, I'm not voting for that person.
No, well, it's a fascist monument, and so is Arc de Triomphe, as he wants to create as well.
Which is monstrosity.
Monstrosity.
You've got that thing. You've seen the scale of this thing?
I know.
It's not some little arch.
No, it's twice the size of the White House.
Yeah, it's a big ass arch. It's gonna dwarf the Lincoln Memorial, which it's gonna be close to. It's ridiculous.
Let's take a look at this clip of him getting excited about the sound of destruction.
Well, people for the evening, and some of the big foreign leaders have been coming. And most excitingly, on the other side, you see the fence and the wall. We're building a world-class ballroom. For 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom here. We don't have a ballroom. We have a little cocktail area, but we don't have a ballroom. The East Room, it's called, is a very small cocktail area. It holds about 88 people if it's tight. And I said, if I do this again, I'm going to get a ballroom built, and we're putting up our own money. The government is paying for nothing. You probably hear the beautiful sound of construction to the back. You hear that sound? Oh, that's music to my ears. I love that sound. Other people don't like it. I love it, Josh. I think when I hear that sound, it reminds me of money. In this case, it reminds me of lack of money because I'm paying for it. So it's the opposite. But it's going to be one of the most beautiful ballrooms anywhere in the world.
There is so much to unpack here. Firstly, he looks like Al Jolson. Did you notice the makeup doesn't go all the way up to his lips? I was waiting for him to break out in Mammy.
Yeah, he looked like a clown.
What the?
He's having some difficulties blending his bronzer.
Yeah.
Lately.
Your turn. We'll volley on this one. Your turn.
First of all, he's given that speech to. You're right. There's a lot to unpack there. Okay, first of all, it's in the Rose Garden Club where he's giving that speech, which
with
used
the concrete
to be the Rose Garden.
That's right.
Which used to have roses in it, which now has umbrellas and tables, and looks like like a country lounge, outdoor lounge.
Yeah,
and all the decor, including the umbrellas, exactly match as Eric Trump just confirmed to Fox. Mar-a-Lago's umbrellas. It's exactly the same as the pool area at Mar-a-Lago. We were also told this week, I forget who said the statement yesterday, was how Trump has been playing his playlist out there. We know Trump likes to DJ events, right? And he's got his playlist. He's got his same, I joke, it's like the same 12 songs from the 1970s because it pretty much is.
Yeah.
You know, he's got all these show tunes and Sinatra and all this stuff, the Bee Gees and, you know, Village People. So he gets off on like DJing. He thinks everybody likes his music. Typical, you know, old guy who's like, you know, you kids are going to love my music. It's better than yours. That's Trump, you know. So the ballroom, okay, it's a monstrosity. It's dwarfs the size of the White House, and it's going to dominate the space. It's going to look like a German style, you know, or Soviet style building, although maybe with some Greek, you know, stylings. But the point is, what Trump wants to have is he wants to be a DJ. He wants to turn the White House into a nightclub because that's what he likes. He likes hitting on all the ladies. He likes everybody kissing his butt. That's what he misses about being in DC and doing the job of president. He misses that environment at Mar-a-Lago. And so what he's done is he's taken Mar-a-Lago and he's moving it to DC. And by the way, he's not paying any of this. That's the other part of this. We learned because he just had a reception a few days ago with the people who are paying for all of this, which is, by the way, $250 million at this point. It started out as $200 million. Now it's 250, he said.
It'll keep going up.
And it's all CEOs, oligarchs, and billionaires who are currently getting things from the government and who want more from the government, who are donating this money. They are not doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They're getting something in return. What is the American people getting out of this? Nothing.
I have so many thoughts about this. I mean, the first thing I would say is he gets more excited about this than anything else.
No doubt.
Any other policy, any other announcement, this for him is bigger than Gaza. This is bigger than Ukraine. This is bigger than healthcare and farmers and everything. He said it himself.
It's more important to him than anything.
Right. He, at heart, is just a decorator. He's a builder and a decorator, and a cheap one at that. That is the only thing that's ever really got him excited. And so when he says out loud, "Oh, I love that sound. It's the sound of money," he means it because, you know, he can't lie. This is the inner monologue presenting itself. And whilst that people might think, oh, well, that only applies to his previous construction projects when he was in business. No, it applies to this too. No, this is a revenue-generating project for him.
He has said that recently multiple times, that like what he really loves to do is decorate buildings, design buildings, you know, look at plans, stare at drawings, photos, mock-ups, you know, choose this drape or that drape. I mean, he's literally like a straight white old interior decorator, which is kind of like a bad combination for interior decorators. But, you know, but also his mind is like stuck in this 1970s time warp. So, and 80s. So like the decor is all like early 80s decor. You know, like he hasn't, his taste in music and architecture and design has not changed since like 1983.
Well, people get stuck in the decade that they felt the best about themselves. And so they tend to want to recreate that forever after, which is why he wears suits that look like they were cut in the 80s. Because that's who
the shoulder
he
pads.
Right, that's who he thinks, and the flared kind of bell bottoms. That's who he thinks he still is. It's very worrying because this really is a reflection of how he is running the entire government, or not running the entire government. That his efforts and his energies ideally would be living in a country club. As you say, that's why he's moving it over to DC. But really, that's, if only he'd have retired, you know, at the appropriate age, because he doesn't want to be the president. He just now is using it for retribution. He loves the power. And, I don't know if you felt this, but whenever I've seen video of his entourage, the whole, all of the vehicles that go in his, what do they call that? The
motorcade?
Yeah, the motorcade, sorry.
Yeah.
And then there's like 30 vehicles, including an ambulance and all sorts. And I think, oh my God, like all of this for this awful person, this terrible person, that wherever he goes, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars just to get him from point A to point B.
And he loves every bit of it.
And he loves every bit of it.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's talk about what happened when this. We touched on it earlier, but this idea that he was supposed to have this meeting with Putin and that never happened. And then he made this announcement that everybody takes some time off. This kind of weird thing. I'll show the clip. Let's take a look.
Put on hold. Do you know what happened there, and does that affect your decision whether or not to send Tomahawks?
No, I don't want to have a wasted meeting. I don't want to have a waste of time. So I'll see what happens. But we did all of these great deals, great peace deals. They're all peace deals. They're agreements, solid agreements, every one of them. But this one, and I said, go to the line of battle, the battlefield lines, and you pull back and you go home, and everybody take some time off, because you got two countries that are killing each other. Two countries that are losing 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers a week. So we'll see what happens. It's we haven't made a determination.
Once again, so much to unpack. Maybe we should work in reverse order, right? That many people are not dying on the battlefield. That's the first thing. This is a number that he makes up. What is 7,000 to 8,000 people a day? After a week,
he's also very concerned about Russian casualties. When
always,
I am elated over every Russian casualty. I celebrate that every Russian barbarian who is killed, I'm joyful. But let him be upset about their casualties.
Yeah, he's never mentioned Ukrainian casualties without mentioning Russian casualties.
That's right,
and that's really the point, isn't it? That he it's the quiet stuff said out loud. But so what really happened here? Why did this meeting with Putin get canceled?
I've read all the reporting on this, and there's been a lot of reporting about what's going on here behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And probably the best reporting on it has come from the Financial Times, which is, I think, from the UK. And Christopher Miller is their Ukraine war correspondent. And he wrote a couple really good in-depth stories. His sources must be really good in Russia and in Rubio's camp. So basically what happened is they have the 2-hour phone call where they agree to where Trump agrees to set up the meeting. Then he meets with Zelensky, like I said, and he told Zelensky all of Putin's demands. And of course, I think that it even took aback Marco Rubio, because it was different than the U.S. government's previous position. It was worse.
Right.
The U.S. government's what Trump and Rubio and Vance were trying to get Zelensky to do was agree to freeze the lines where they were and cede the territory to Russia that they have conquered, which Zelensky really did not want to do, but was willing to if there were security guarantees and other things that would ensure that this really was going to be it, and that Putin would not be in a position to go any further. Okay, so that was the official position of the U.S. government. And so it looked like they were kind of headed in that direction. And then Trump has his conversation with Putin, and Putin is like, absolutely not. We're not satisfied. We want this, this, and this, all of Donbass and other things. And so what does Trump do? Does he push back on Putin? No. Does he go to Zelensky and say, listen, Putin wants this. We're not going along with this. We're going to negotiate. No. He meets with Zelensky the following day and he says, this is our new position. The United States' new position is Vladimir Putin's position. And then what happened is the State Department immediately walked it back the next day. And Rubio was like, no, 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 no. That's because Republicans in the Senate were freaking out.
Right.
Lindsey was freaking out. Thune was freaking out. They were all freaking out. Like, what? And so then what happened is they walk it back and they go, no, that's not our position. Our position is, he needs to freeze the lines. So then what happens is Lavrov, the spokesman, and Peskov, their foreign minister, meets with Rubio and Witkoff, not meet in person, but talk over the phone about setting up the parameters of this summit in Hungary, which, by the way, Putin wanted to do it in Budapest with Orban as the host, and Trump agreed to that. Why? Because I think that Putin wanted to force being able to fly over European countries who have previously said he cannot fly over their territory. Shit. And I think he wanted to force that a European country to surrender.
Right. It's pound play.
So on that point, and of course, Orban is friendly territory for him. He doesn't want to meet anywhere else. And so Orban's openly hostile to Zelensky. And so what happened is they went to because Trump didn't want to have obviously another summit where he looks like a fool, where he goes in there and Putin lectures him for 2 hours on 14th century history of Russia, like he did in Alaska, because that's what he did in Alaska.
That's right.
And he didn't want to repeat that experience. And so I think what happened is in those discussions after all of this went down, the Russians made it very clear that their position has not changed one bit. That's what they have said openly. Our position has not changed one bit since Alaska. We have no new position. We are not going to have a new position. And so that's when Trump was like, all right, summit's off. So that's what happened.
Russia's position hasn't actually changed in 3.5 years since the war began. And it only feels like it's changed because Trump is kind of Putin's spokesperson and makes it sound like Putin's, he's having success with Putin when he clearly isn't. It's all a performance. And I mean, you and I were discussing this, a year and a half ago, and I think I said, Trump eventually is going to just say, well, let's hold the lines we have. He mentioned the Donbass. We mentioned the Donbass, and we were like, they'll end up giving, saying that should be Russian territory too. Trump is the worst negotiator, the worst diplomat. He has no skills when it comes to this. And yet he just... there is some reporting coming out of Europe saying that Trump is just now getting bored and he's just going to wipe his hands with it altogether because this is a war that he cannot end, despite promising to be able to do it in 24 hours, and that he is going to, cause trouble elsewhere, which he's already doing with Venezuela and everything else. So, I don't know. I have a feeling that we're almost going to hear the end of this from the White House, and Europe and NATO will have to pick up the pieces.
My read on this, following this stuff really closely, and I follow lots of reporters who cover the war, including reporters from Russia and Ukraine, is that at what he thought at first was that, we remember from the February meeting, he thought that he was going to be able to end this by strong-arming Zelensky and, getting in his face as they did in the Oval Office and ambushing him and just saying, the mineral deal and just saying, this is it. You got to agree. And that he would look like the great hero because, look, Joe Biden couldn't resolve this war and I did it in 2 months. Give me the Nobel Peace Prize. That's what he thought. And Zelensky and Europe and Republicans in the Senate went apeshit after that meeting and pushed back. And the American people pushed back. The polls were like 80% against Trump on that, how he handled that meeting. And so he pulled back from the brink on all of that. And they had frozen aid that was already authorized and approved and was, they had let that go through. And then I think he kind of reset and thought, okay, I'll go to my boy Vlad, who's my good buddy and friend, and we love each other. And I'll get him to I'll make a deal. I'll get him to make some concessions, and then I'll force Zelensky to go along with it. So that was like plan B. And then Putin made it clear, oh no, you work for me. I don't work for you. I'm not doing anything. I'm not making any concessions. and then he kind of threw up his hands on Putin, and so I think now we're at the point where he did really want to get this done for his own personal, aggrandizement. And now reality has sunk in that it's probably not going to happen, certainly not going to happen anytime soon. So I don't think it's a situation where he's bored. I think it's a situation where he now realizes he's not going to be able to solve this because it's hard. And he's not into hard things. And so he's just going to, I think, wipe his hands of it. And I don't think all the aid that Ukraine has gotten this year was all approved by Congress last year under Joe Biden. And so that's all gone. I mean, that's running out. There is currently no more aid packages approved for Ukraine.
Right.
And I don't think there will be any in the future.
And all the weapons, Trump's new line is, oh, well, we're selling the weapons to Europe and they're buying them from us. And those are going to Ukraine. And so it's a great deal for us. And that's his out for this. But yeah, I mean, it's just a disaster. I mean, I think he thought he could get his Nobel Peace Prize for Ukraine. And when it became clear that he wasn't able to close that deal, he then moved on to Gaza and hurried that in because he knew of the Nobel decision. I would love for Zelensky to get the Nobel Peace Prize next year. That would, right? That would really
we don't know. We don't know where we're going to be next year on that. I mean, the only solution is the solution I've been saying since November, which is Europe must ramp up their defense spending and accept that they are in a war. And I don't think I don't think that they have fully appreciated it. I think they thought, we'll help here and there. We'll spend a little more, but we'll get the U.S. to still do the bulk of the aid. No, I mean that was just that was just a misread of the situation by Europe. And I'm still waiting for someone in Europe to go, okay, we get it. U.S. is out. We got to go all in here.
I think they're thinking it privately. But again, this is the problem with coalitions, is that there isn't really a solitary mouthpiece. And so, everyone is kind of hoping that somebody else is got their heads around.
The German chancellor doesn't really see eye to eye with Macron all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
And of course, the UK is their own thing. So, yeah.
We have to take a quick break, but I want to come back and talk about No Kings, which was a hugely successful protest on Saturday. We've got a whole bunch more. I want to talk about the farmers as well and Argentinian beef and goodness knows what else. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. The guys at True Classic started with a simple mission to bring premium, comfortable clothing to the masses, because looking and feeling great shouldn't come with a designer price tag. And clearly people agree. People vote with their dollars, and True Classic has sold over 25 million shirts to more than 5 million customers and is racking up over 200,000 5-star reviews. Now, the brand isn't just about fabric or fit, it's about helping guys show up every day with confidence and purpose. Their shirts fit where they should, feel incredible, and don't break the bank. You get that tailored look without sacrificing comfort or blowing your budget. I've been wearing True Classic for a while now, and you can feel the difference the moment you throw one on. It's tailored where you want it, relaxed where you need it. No bunching, no stiff fabric, no BS, just a clean, effortless fit that actually works for real life. So forget overpriced designer brands. Skip the cheap throwaway stuff. True Classic is built for comfort, built to last, and built to give back. You can find them on Amazon, Target, Costco, Sam's Club, or head to trueclassic.com/uncovered to try them out for yourself. And details of our sponsors can be found in the description below. Ron, let's talk about No Kings for a moment, because I found the whole thing very emotional. I always, I've become a real softie in my middle age. And when I see a kind of outpouring of kind of integrated support.
Do you cry at movies?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, I cry watching the news. I mean, I really am. I don't know what it is. I think since having kids or something, it does something to you. But anyway, I just found the whole thing to be amazing. And this was the largest single protest in American history. Over 8 million people, they reckon, could have been more, taking to the streets, protesting the whole thing. I mean, it wasn't just a solitary issue. It was not wanting to live under a fascist dictatorship. And, this has to keep happening, obviously. Trump had a few things to say about it, as we know, and Mike Johnson was kind of spinning it in his own way, and the way that they handled it was just really, they were sore losers. But one thing that was interesting that I thought was on the day they went quiet. The opposition went quiet because I guess they were waiting for something to kick off or some violence, and everyone's like dressed in frog costumes and like leaping around being, protesting peacefully. That's what got me going, I think, was kind of how sweet they were with it. Let's take a look at Trump and his response.
What is your response to the protest?
Who are you with?
I'm with AP.
With AP?
What's your response to the protest over the weekend, the No Kings protest this Saturday?
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for, I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. It looks like it was. We're checking it out. The demonstrations were very small, very ineffective, and the people were whacked out. When you look at those people, those are not representative of the people of our country.
Mr. President, besides San Francisco...
By the way, I'm not a king. I'm not a king. I work my ass off to make our country great. That's all it is. I'm not a king at all.
Yeah. Firstly, he's whacked out, and secondly, he's been working his ass off playing golf and building the Epstein ballroom. Your turn.
Yeah, I mean, what does he know about these things? He knows what he sees on Fox.
Right.
And what does Fox do? What does the right-wing propaganda machine do on all of these kind of events? Whether it's the BLM stuff from 2020 or Portland or whatever, LA, whatever, any protest. Their propaganda machine, which is very well funded and very organized and very good, they will seek out the, one person or two people randomly somewhere in the country who did something crazy. I think they found like one kid who was like a 10-year-old kid who was like hitting a Donald Trump piñata with a bat or something. And that was all over Fox News, right? This is violence. These are violent protests. That's what they do. They take 2 or 3 isolated incidents of random people and they blow it up and they play it on a loop and they say, this is what it was all about, and Trump sees that and he says, oh, look, paid signs. I tell you, I knew it was going to be big because of Mike Johnson, and I have a lot to say about this, but, I was really surprised at how educated. I mean, I'm here in Maine and people are really smart here and stuff, and they're really on the ball and they follow the news more than maybe a lot of other places. But, these people were really plugged in, man, from their signs. I was surprised, honestly. I was surprised at how much they knew about like what Mike Johnson said that day or, yesterday or what Scalise said or what, Emmer said. Like they paid attention. And a lot of those people were motivated to come out, some of them, because of Mike Johnson, the things that the Republicans were saying, because them saying for a week straight, this was a hate American rally of Marxists and communists and paid people, I think motivated a lot of people who maybe said, I don't want to get off my couch today, or I'm going to watch this movie, or I've got other plans because it's a beautiful Saturday, to cancel those plans and show up this time where they maybe wanted to before and didn't. I can tell you, I went to one in Portland, Maine, and Maine doesn't have a lot of people. Maine is, especially this time of year when it's not season and, it's not summer. And my response to the guys at Midas was, half of Maine must be here. I've never seen that many people at any gathering in Maine in my life. I mean, it was the entire park was packed with people. And I can tell you, every sign was handmade. There was 0 paid signs, nothing. Every sign was handmade. And all I did was walk around and look at the signs and just amazed at the brilliance and the creativity and I talked to the people a lot about, you know, the Plattner Collins race. I mean, the Plattner Mills race and a lot of other things. And there was no hate. It was all love. It was love for America. It was love for country. And you're right. I mean, it was emotional. It was like way better than I expected and hoped.
When Trump and MAGA Mike and Chip Roy, I'll show his clip in a minute, you know, they talk about people who they think of protesters as undesirables. You know, Trump in that clip, he's like, well, they don't represent America. They're not, you know, they were whacked out. Again, it's almost like they want everyone to look like they have membership at Mar-a-Lago. Unless you are that kind of perfect, or it's completely imperfect, isn't it? Because it's an entirely fake existence where you've had your plastic surgery, or you've had your scalp moved, and you've got your orange makeup on, and your war paint, basically. Anybody who is not white and wealthy is basically the antithesis of the type of people that they think should represent America. And so this, you know, is heavy on the white supremacy. It's heavy on the failure to acknowledge diversity and the true integration of a mixed society. And so that's all Trump and Chip and Mike, and that's what these people want. They are part of a cult that does not accept anybody that doesn't look like them. I'm going to show this Chip Roy clip now. Again, very interesting use of language. Here it is.
Political rallies. And the truth is, the Marxists, the radicals, and the Islamists, the Democratic Party promoted this weekend. They cannot handle the truth. The truth is that there is a king, and that king is Jesus. And the president has been willing to say it. His administration has been willing to say it. And Charlie Kirk was willing to say it, and he got killed for it.
So, right. So this is the first kind of expose of this far-right Christian nationalism. And for people who don't quite know the difference between moderate Christianity and Christian nationalism, is that they basically want to have their version of Christianity, this kind of extreme version, in the government. There is no separation of church and state. They believe that you know, they all have divine powers and that Trump is the chosen one. And I mean, it's deep. In fact, I did this incredible interview with this amazing woman who got out of the cult, this kind of Christian nationalist. She was a trad wife on the Weekend Show a couple of weeks ago. And I mean, I learned so much about MAGA Mike and what their belief system is. Yeah. And, you know, for people like us who are either not religious or are moderate Christians, we don't even know what they're on about, because it's a completely different thing. It is not Christianity. It is another world of thinking. And I think, you know, there from Chip Roy, we're starting to see this use of language. And I think we're going to see more of that as they gain confidence. But to refer to anybody who is countering their version of America as Islamists and as Marxists and radical, I mean, these are just very kind of cheap hits, and they're not fooling anybody.
I mean, honestly, like, I don't understand the strategy from Johnson. It just tells me how dumb he is when it comes to messaging, and how, I mean, the guy's from a rural Louisiana district. He's never had an opponent. He's always run unopposed. I mean, so why would we assume that this guy, he was chosen as speaker after he was like the fifth choice?
Yeah.
Because he was the only one that, like, none of the people in the Republican caucus had any beef with. You know, he was the only one who was like non-controversial, who somebody didn't hate. And so that's how he got the speakership, like, by default. You know, he's like the only guy in the room that nobody hates. Let's make him speaker, right? Even though he, you know, and so he chooses, he spent the entire week, his leadership team. You see, he's got the whip there. He's got the majority leader, Scalise. He's got the whip Emmer there and him. And the conference chair, Lisa McClain, who's also a moron. So it's the four of them, and they're up and they're giving their press conference every morning at 9, right? And that's to shut down, you know, the messaging. And they chose for this week their messaging that the shutdown is only happening because of no kings, you know, and that they wanna have this no kings thing, because if Schumer ended the shutdown before no kings, the no kings protest would turn into a protest of Schumer. I mean, this is what they've come up with in their twisted brain. that No Kings is only happening because of Chuck Schumer, his career. And the reality is, like, no one who was out there cares about Chuck Schumer. I didn't see any like Chuck Schumer fans at No Kings. Like, it had nothing to do with it. He has nothing to do with No Kings. He played no role whatsoever in the organization of No Kings. This is an organic thing that he had nothing to do with. So then they have to take the rallies and they start coming up with this insane lie that it's a communist, Marxist, Islamic,
pro-Hamas
domestic terrorist. And it's like, I was beside myself all week because I'm like, it obviously is not, this bad stuff is not going to happen. I mean, so my thought was like, when it doesn't happen, what are they going to say? They're going to look like complete fools. So then nothing bad happens. And I thought, okay, now they're going to come out Monday morning and they're just going to like move on and stop talking about this. But no, I mean, no, they're claiming that they were Islamic radical domestic terrorist rallies, that is actually what happened. It's just like, where did this happen?
I have a theory on this because, you know, they kind of coined this Antifa phrase and they never use its full extension and refer to it as anti-fascists. And they've designated Antifa as a terrorist organization. So if Trump is the enemy or Antifa is the enemy of Trump, then that makes Trump the fascist, right? Because everybody else is anti-fascist. So I think the reason they started using Antifa a few years ago is because it sounded a bit like Al-Qaeda, and it kind of had a kind of Islamist, kind of Muslim, Arabic sound to it. And then they just kind of kept pushing that. And now, because they do it with Barack Hussein Obama all the time, you know, pushing the Hussein, trying to give people the impression that he is somehow linked to our former enemies.
Well, part of it also is like there really is no democratic, like organized resistance.
Right.
You know, there's like, it's all like loosely aligned groups. So, you know, you try and find the boogeyman to make the devil. And it's hard to do that with democratic groups because there really isn't, you know, I mean, George Soros is the one they keep going to, right? Because there's nobody else that you can go after.
Well, Mamdani is the new one, right? He's the guy.
Sure.
They're trying to
once he wins, of course, you know, he will win. Then he's definitely going to be like the new, because AOC doesn't do it for them anymore. You know, they don't get much track. It used to be her for a while, and it was Hillary before that. And, you know, that's run its course. So now you're right. It's going to be Mamdani. Yeah.
Just kind of going back to this, the movement, like the resistance, because when they refer to Marxists, they're talking about Americans. When they talk about pro-Hamas, they're talking about Americans. They're just basically, their opposition is the real people.
Well, what they're saying too about that is like, if you say Netanyahu and Israel has gone too far in Gaza, then you're considered pro-Hamas.
Right.
That's what they believe.
Right. And this is, I don't think this is going to work out very well for them because, you know, when people are polled nationally, people now have kind of are starting to see that Israel is not everything that it was cracked up to be, and that, you know, the way that they've handled themselves.
I have.
Right.
I can honestly tell you, I have over the last year completely changed my view of Israel that I had my entire life. You know, just because of how they've conducted themselves. You know, I gave them a lot of rope after October 7th. You know, I'm like, give them a lot of the benefit of the doubt. You know, what happened was horrific. You know, and they should be given some liberties here to respond in kind and get their hostages back and go after Hamas leaders. I was all in on that. But you know what? I mean, after about 3 months, they lost me on that because it's just like you realize that that's not really what it's all about for them.
Well,
you
and half of the European leaders as well.
Yeah.
So many European nations now have acknowledged that it is a genocide. The way I describe it is that October 7 was a terrorist attack, and the response was an act of war.
Yep.
And I think that, you know, I think that Netanyahu used that horrific event as the catalyst to go all out again because he was up for corruption charges. It meant that he could stay in office. It's very similar to the way Donald Trump handles himself. And we know what these people are like now. They're cut from similar cloth. And so we kind of get a sense of the mindset. And so I don't blame the Israelis any more than I blame the Palestinians. But it's the leadership often that is misrepresentative of the people of these countries. And that's the problem we have in the US, is that Trump does not represent all Americans.
You know, you're right. I mean, we view now Israel based on Netanyahu and his behavior and his government. When
he is not Israel.
We know that probably the majority of Israelis at this point don't want him as PM, you know?
Yeah. I should just mention that just before we came on air, it was announced that the US had struck another one of these boats. This time on
number 8.
On the opposite side of the peninsula now. And so this is, again, these are war crimes as viewed by the international community. And yet the US is just kind of pushing on with their view, and they're claiming that the CIA are the ones who provide the intelligence. And that's a very good excuse for the fact that this intelligence will never be made public because it's all eyes only, under wraps. Very, very convenient.
Yep. It's unbelievable. And we already see that you're talking about the Venezuela. The thing that blew me away was, when they caught the 2 survivors. The 2 survivors, and they picked them up the Navy boat. Okay, now we got survivors, because we were always talking internally at Midas is like, what happens if somebody survives one of these attacks? Like, what happens next? Are they brought to the United States? Are they prosecuted? Because here's the problem with that. If they do that, then they've got to present evidence in court, that these people were actually engaged in drug trafficking. So now it's not just Donald Trump saying they're narco terrorists and we just have to take his word for it because we don't know, and all we can do is quibble with, should we, even if they are drug traffickers, should we be summarily executing them without trial or proof? Right. Setting that aside, so we just have to take his word for it. So then we have 2 survivors, and I immediately posted on social media, like when that happened, like, this is a major story. Mm-hmm. This is a major problem for the Trump administration, because now they're going to be forced to present evidence in a court of law to hold these guys.
Yes.
And guess what? Oh no, they solved that problem. They solved that problem by letting them go. They flew them both back to their home countries.
Yep.
One was from Ecuador, and I think the other was from Colombia or something.
Mm-hmm.
And Ecuador just said, no, we're not prosecuting him. We're letting him go. So we have these 2 guys who are allegedly narco terrorists who we tried to kill, but they survived. So we let them go. I mean, so the Trump doctrine on all of this stuff is, we're going to blow up boats and kill people. We're going to ask the world to believe that they're narco terrorists, therefore it's justified. But if any of them survive, we'll let them go. I mean, that makes no sense.
There are families of these individuals who are being killed, and these families are going to want justice for their executed loved ones. And so I don't think we're going to hear the end of this. This could be the thing that, if Trump lives another few years, this could be the thing that gets him from the international.
Of that, like the president of Colombia comes out a few days ago and says, one of these guys was a fisherman on his fishing boat.
Yes.
He was a 5th generation fisher. Like, this guy doesn't have money. He's not a drug trafficker. He went fishing and never came home. And after he said that, what happened? Trump announces he's imposing tariffs and sanctions on Colombia because the president dared accuse him of killing an innocent person. I mean, This is what the United States has become, sadly.
And they love it. I mean, didn't Vance make that speech the other week and he goes, oh, well, I wouldn't go fishing in the Caribbean Sea if I were you.
It's
they
funny
love
to
it.
them.
Like they think it's funny to
I wouldn't either. I mean, who in their right mind would go out on a fishing boat in that region? So,
but something's going to go
we're
horribly
killing
wrong.
their fishing industry.
They're-
Families that have been fishing in those waters for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
They're afraid to go out on the water now. Ha ha, very funny.
They'll end up accidentally shooting an American boat or a cruise ship or something. Like there'll be some error because they seem to be way too gung-ho with the way that they're using these drones and dropping these bombs. And I'm telling you, something is going to go horribly wrong.
Because here's what I can tell you, being prosecuting and defending drug trafficking cases for 30 years, as I did, is that a lot of these cases are made with informant information.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those informants are unreliable, especially in drug cases, because they're getting paid or they have charges against them that they're trying to get dropped. No informant does it for free. Everybody who becomes an informant in drug cases is getting something in return. And many times they will bring false information or rumors or information about a rival that they don't like to law enforcement, hoping that law enforcement will open an investigation and go after that person that they don't like, or they're going to give some information that benefits them. And what happens is you bring that stuff into a court of law, and sometimes it doesn't hold up. Sometimes what the informant said to law enforcement turns out many times to be completely fabricated, not true. I've seen it in hundreds of situations. But if we have executed the suspects based on what an informant told law enforcement, then we never know whether the informant lied or not.
Based on what you just said, it just occurred to me that, this is who Trump is. Trump is sanctioning and authorizing these killings. So that, that makes him a killer, a murderer, somebody who can live with himself. And there's been plenty of leaders through history who have suffered enormous mental health challenges after their leadership ends because of the wars that they've got their countries into.
Ain't gonna be Trump.
Ain't gonna be Trump because he has no empathy. He has no conscience. But to me, this is very similar to how he asked that time, "Well, why can't we just shoot protesters? And why can't we just shoot migrants crossing the border?" And every time his generals said, "You cannot do that. You can't just shoot people." Because this is international water, this is Trump finally getting that opportunity to give people no due process. There's no arrest and detainment and trial. This is him getting his moment to execute people for daring to enter the United States.
And what do we know is that the admiral in charge of Southern Command,
who
was overseeing these operations, quit.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
There's been a couple of others as well that have quit.
Yeah.
I mean, this we're going to start to see. I mean, I hope they don't all quit because I was hoping for a military coup, Ron. So I was like, please.
Might still get it the way Hegseth's going. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Hegseth and Vance because they just fired. What was it? They fired live artillery over the I-5 for his TikTok account or something, didn't he? I can't actually play the audio from the clip because it's copyrighted, but we can kind of show what happened. So just explain what's going on here.
So that's Camp Pendleton, where I was stationed for 4 years. I've been on that beach several times. They do typically amphibious landings on the beach where like people will come from ships onto the beach there, and they'll practice those at that beach. Is a great spot to do it. But it's also right between San Diego and LA. It's part of San Diego County, borders on Orange County, and it's I-5. It's the interstate that runs along the coast of Southern California. So it is literally one of the busiest interstates in America. And so what happened? Who was the first news outlet to report on this? It was Midas. We have really good sources inside the Gavin Newsom's camp, who tipped us off because they got to notify the governor at some point that they're doing something like this. particularly since it affects a highway. And so what the information that we had was that they were going to fire live artillery shells over the interstate, over I-5. And so the Trump administration immediately said that our story was false, that it was fake news. And what the information that we had from Newsom was that the plan was that they were going to shut down I-5 during this exercise, okay, during this Hegseth. And the whole thing was about making a TikTok video, as we saw, making this TikTok video for J.D. Vance. That was the whole point of the exercise, was so that they could make this video for Vance's TikTok for ultimately his campaign for president in 2028. That's what this is all about, to show him as a commander in chief.
Yes.
That's what this is all about.
Team America, World Police.
J.D. Vance's 2028 presidential campaign. That's and you look at it's clearly what this is. So they were going to shut down the highway because you're shooting live artillery over a highway, which is very dangerous, one of the busiest highways in America. So they said, no, that's fake news. And the part of the story that they denied was not firing the artillery over I-5, we're not shutting down I-5. We're not going to inconvenience anyone. And so that was like even worse.
Yeah,
it's even worse because now you're endangering the lives of people. So then Newsom stepped in and said, okay, no, I'm closing I-5. I have the authority as California governor. I'm closing it down. And then the White House went after Newsom. Why is he closing I-5? This is ridiculous. This is not necessary. He's inconveniencing things. And then what happens? What you put up on the screen before, they had a misfire. One of the shells, you see, detonated prematurely over the highway, shooting shrapnel into a California Highway Patrol vehicle that was part of the Vance security detail, which, had this, people could have gotten killed.
Right.
Why are you shooting artillery shells over a busy highway? What is the point? The point is J.D. Vance needed a TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah, this really is the tiny penis brigade being given access to the armories, isn't it? I mean, there is definitely in American culture a certain group who love guns and they love military and they love showing off. They're all men, I should point that out as well. But these guys, Hegseth and Vance, they really are the epitome of this thing.
And in the first administration, you had people like General Kelly,
right,
Mark Esper, Mark Milley, who would say, whenever they would have these harebrained ideas about using the military for politics, they would say, no, we're not doing it. You can't do this. And now we have Pete Hegseth, who, yesterday was being flown around in a fighter jet. They put it out to make it look like he was actually flying the fighter jet when he was just sitting in the back seat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was just going for a ride.
Yes.
There's a two-seater. He's sitting in the back. He's going for a ride. But they didn't say that.
No. And
they didn't show the pilot. The point is they made a video of it. It's one thing. He could go do flying a jet if that's what he thinks his job is as Secretary of Defense is, riding tanks, flying jets, go on boats. Fine. But, it's a film crew. It's like with Noam. Everything they do is for propaganda. So he goes on the jet yesterday and he's filmed. But the camera doesn't show the pilot, makes it look like he's the pilot. And of course, they don't say he's just riding along.
Right.
They give the impression to people that oh my God, Pete Hegseth is a fighter pilot.
Right. Well, it's like how they filmed Tom Cruise in Top Gun.
He was a National Guard, junior officer. He never flew fighter jets. He doesn't know how to fly a plane.
We should just mention, because we failed to mention it earlier, and you just reminded me with the fighter jet thing. You know what I'm going to say, right? The video that Trump posted after No Kings of the AI video of him flying a fighter jet and then pouring shit all over the protesters, wearing a crown whilst he was doing it. I mean,
It was the most accurate, video that he's put out so far yet, dumping shit on the heads of Americans.
This is what he thinks of people.
Yeah.
So much for being a president for all Americans. No, only the ones that don't look like they're whacked out, according to him. Meanwhile, he's the most whacked out person I ever saw.
And of course, the funniest part of postscript of that is, they go to Mike Johnson and all the Republicans on the Sunday shows and stuff. Because he usually does these things on Saturdays.
Right.
These wacko videos. So, they're all on the Sunday shows, all the Republicans. And of course, it's all over social media. Everybody's talking about this video that Trump put out wearing a crown, dumping shit on the heads of No Kings protesters. And, they all don't know anything about it. It's like, oh, I didn't see it. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what you're talking about.
The propaganda that you mentioned, I mean, this is something that ICE are doing now on a massive scale, is that wherever there is an ICE raid, there is a camera crew as well. True. And this is all part of the, and they're claiming that they're recruiting 10,000 people. Well, now they're having problems getting people to pass the fitness test, right? Because all of these fat white supremacists that are applying for this job, apparently that kind of $50,000 bonus and everything, that was all bullshit. Like that has not materialized. But now we're hearing Donald Trump's plan to double the size of the ICE workforce has met a foe more powerful than any activist group. It is decimating new recruits at the agency's training academy in Georgia. It is the ICE personal fitness test. More than a third have failed so far, 4 officials told me, impeding the agency's plan to hire, train, and deploy 10,000 deportation officers by January. To pass, recruits must do 15 push-ups and 32 sit-ups and run 1.5 miles in 14 minutes. Could you do it?
I posted that excerpt. That was from an article in The Atlantic, by the way, who's owned by Steve Jobs' wife, who The Atlantic's great. I mean, they're one of the few left that is doing good, a good job here covering Trump. And that was a really good article about exposing their new ICE regime, which is, they got all this money approved in the beautiful monstrosity bill, right?
Yeah.
To double the size of ICE like overnight. Well, how do you do that? I mean, how do you get that many people? And we heard from local sheriff's offices all over the country that they were trying to pull their people away from them and hire them to be ICE agents. And they were upset. We heard that from a lot of Republican sheriffs. So how do you find that many people, and how do you get that many people in? Because they needed to just have this massive hiring program. So they lowered the standards. They lowered them to that. What you saw, those are not the original standards for the ICE Academy. They made them extremely easy. And when I post that, by the way, most of the responses I got from my social media followers on Blue Sky, and by the way, this week I was the number one person on all of Blue Sky for engagement.
Congratulations.
Yep. Number one. I'm the king of Blue Sky.
Your badge is in the mail.
Despite the fact that many people post more than me on there, I had the most retweets and likes on Blue Sky in the last 7 days. Congratulations. So I posted that. Most of the replies I've gotten were from like 78-year-old women who said, I can pass that test. So, but it turns out most of these Gravy SEALs that they're recruiting can't pass it, which is pretty funny.
Let's talk about Argentinian beef just for a moment. Donald Trump was kind of asked about his message to farmers after this announcement. Not only is he bailing out Argentina because he loves Javier Milei, but he's also now going to be taking their... In his mind, I can imagine him going, Argentina. Oh, beef. Here he is.
Question is, what do you have to say to U.S. farmers who feel that the deal is benefiting Argentina more than it is them, they are
Argentina's fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it. They're fighting for their life. Nothing's benefiting Argentina. They're fighting for their life. You understand what that means? They have no money. They have no anything. They're fighting so hard to survive. If I can help them survive in a free world, I happen to like the president of Argentina. I think he's trying to do the best he can, but don't make it sound like they're doing great. They are dying. All right? They're dying.
What do you mean by
Yeah, they were doing okay till that president showed up. That's for certain.
What did he say? She made it sound like they were doing great. I missed that.
Yeah.
I didn't hear her say that.
No.
This is ridiculous. I mean, there are a lot of countries in South America and around the world that are their economy is not great, and they have a lot of inflation. Why? So why Argentina? Why is it in our national interest to pour $80 billion? And by the way, the first currency swap we did, we're already losing our ass on it, because currency swap means we exchange $40 billion of US dollars for Argentinian peso, right? They get the US dollars, we get the peso. So as soon as they have inflation and their currency gets devalued, we start losing money, which has already happened.
Mm-hmm.
The market, their Argentine pesos went up. They got a little bump when the announcement was made. All of the gains have already been lost. So what did Scott Bessent do as a career prior to this? He worked for George Soros for 20 years. What did he do for George Soros? He was a currency trader. This guy is a currency speculator. That's what he's done his whole life. So right now he's speculating on the Argentinian currency with U.S. tax dollars, not George Soros's money this time, with our money. And so it's not going well. And by the way, why are they doing it? Because they have their midterms in 6 days, their midterm elections for their legislature. And all the polls show that Milieu's party is going to get wiped out in this election. And they definitely would have gotten wiped out without U.S. propping up their currency. Right. But this is the idea that this is going to help them. So Trump's been getting a lot of heat over this, obviously. So as his Bessent on all the shows. And so what's going on here is he wanted to get something in return, because we're not getting anything from Argentina. They're not helping us out at all. In fact, they're undercutting us, because when the Chinese stopped buying soybeans and sorghum and other agricultural products from the United States because of tariffs, who did they run to? Brazil and Argentina. That is who they're buying it from. So Argentina is actually screwing over our farmers as we speak, and have been, by taking our Chinese customers away from our own farmers. And at the same time, we're bailing them out. And so Trump is like, I got to get something to take to my people. Well, what happens to be like one of the grocery store items that has gone up the most since he's taken office? Coffee is one, beef is the other, for a lot of reasons. Argentina, they have a lot of beef. They also have a lot of hoof and mouth disease going on right now too. So Trump figures, okay, well, I'm bailing out Milieu. He can sell us some cheap beef, and that'll help out with the beef prices in the United States. Of course, what happens? The cattle farmers go crazy. The cattle ranchers are like, what are you talking about? You're going to put us out of business now with soybean farmers.
And their margins were so tiny in the first place.
It's unbelievable. I mean, this guy is a buffoon.
Part of the problem in Venezuela, as I see it, is that Milei himself is to economics what RFK Jr. is to healthcare, right? Yeah. He's one of these nut jobs.
Yeah.
And so
way out there. He's like from the Rand Paul School of Economics.
He's whacked out, to coin a phrase. Yeah. And it's his application of these kind of extreme policies, economic policies, that have got the country into the mess that they're in. But Trump likes him because they're all white nationalists. They're all on the far right.
Well, and he's flown to the United States multiple times to kiss Trump's ass.
Yeah, waving a chainsaw.
And we know that works.
Yeah, talk about easily manipulated. Let's take a look at the president of the Nebraska Farm Bureau, who isn't happy about Trump's plan to import
Who is
beef.
a Trump supporter?
Yes. And sorry, I said Venezuela earlier and I meant Argentina. Here we go.
Yeah.
Hello, ag friends. Hopefully your fall is going well. Some days you feel like you just can't catch a break in agriculture, but the cattle sector is one of the real bright spots here in the industry, and certainly in Nebraska, where we have a lot of mama cows. But unfortunately, we have an administration that thinks that they need to lower the price of beef. President Trump on Friday actually made a statement that said we should lower the price of beef, and ultimately that's lowering the price of cattle. That's not something we need to do. I just want our members to know that Nebraska Farm Bureau is adamantly opposed to anything that would artificially lower the price of beef. We have worked hard to get our cattle market where it is. It's a supply and demand issue right now. But quite frankly, we need this bright spot here in Nebraska. So I have communicated with all of our federal delegation and let them know that we are opposed to any move that would artificially lower the price of beef cattle. They have worked that up to the leadership already today. And so stay tuned as we kind of follow this story. Hopefully we can get this tamped down. But just want to make sure that you know that I'm doing everything that I can as your president of Nebraska Farm Bureau to ensure that our beef sector here in Nebraska and the country continues to thrive. Until next time.
Why isn't he the Minister for Agriculture? You know? That's what we need.
He's a Trump voter. He's a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
As are 78% of the farmers in the United States voted for Trump again in 2024, despite the fact that he screwed them over. We had to do 2 farm bailouts in Trump's first term, 2018 and again in 2019.
This is why Democrats have to offer these Republicans a soft place to land when they switch. It is so important.
Sometimes I feel guilty, shaming them and going after them. I'm like, how can you be so stupid? But, it's a natural reaction because I don't want to ridicule them and make them.
They're not stupid.
Run
they
away.
were lied to. They were lied to and they were manipulated and they put their trust in Trump. And,
it's funny, though, the push-pull here, because you hear him say, this is a real bright spot and we got the cattle market right where we want it. What he's talking about is the prices are high.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in their interest to have beef prices be as high as possible. So you have a situation where consumers are complaining about beef prices, but the cattle ranchers are very happy about the beef prices being where it's at, and they don't want foreign competition. Look, I'm sympathetic to the smaller family farms. I hate big ag. I hate I don't want the United States food supply to be controlled by a handful of oligarchs, some of whom are foreign corporations who control a lot of the food supply in the United States. I don't want that. So I'm sympathetic to these people, but you keep voting for your own destruction. What are we supposed to do?
That I do think that so many of Trump's policies, they're not even policies, they're just whims and hunches. And he's admitted that, it's, I just got a feeling, he says. But so many of these things are detrimental to the very people who voted for him. And it's essential that Democrats recognize that and they talk about it so that they can offer a safe space for Republicans to come without judgment and vote Democrat next time around, if we get a vote. We have to finish. But Ron, thank you. You're the best. I will look forward to seeing you next Wednesday, and we'll do it all again. Download the audio podcast. It drops later tonight. Check out our sponsors in the description. Watch the show again. Share the show. Comment below, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks a lot, Ron.
Okay. See you next week.